The Zervan Dominion always believed they understood war. For centuries their fleets had swept across the pale verge unchallenged, burning worlds, toppling nations, and crushing resistance beneath the weight of their doctrine: overwhelm, eradicate, advance. Their admirals spoke of victory as if it were preordained. Their soldiers were raised to believe that no species could match Zervan steel. That belief began cracking the moment the unidentified contact appeared on their long-range scanners. Overlord Kryth Vorgan sat upon his obsidian throne aboard the flagship Vorthul, eyes locked on the flickering holographic feed. Around him, the bridge was silent. Not even the ventilation fans dared make a sound. "Explain," Vorgan said. His chief Sensorian knelt, crest trembling. "Overlord, the object maintains no broadcast signatures. No IFF. No transponder. But it—" "Mass," Vorgan snapped. The alien swallowed. Over 2 trillion tons." A murmur rippled across the command circle. Even the fighter carriers of the Dominion rarely exceeded a few billion tons. This reading was absurd. "Impossible," Vorgan growled. "It is not a station, Overlord," the Sensorian whispered. "It is accelerating." The bridge erupted. Officers barked contradictory orders. Several demanded recalibration. One fainted where he stood. A 2 trillion-ton object accelerating was a violation of fleet engineering. Of known physics. Vorgan stood, voice rippling like a blade across the chamber. "Show me." The hologram sharpened. And for the very first time in Dominion history, the Zervan saw a human battleship built without fear, without restraint, without the slightest concern for alien comprehension. A vessel forged to end invasions. The TSV Leviathan. It emerged from the void like a newborn star being carved out of darkness, a continent-sized warship plated in gravitic armor, its hull rippling with shifting cerulean light. Its silhouette was all wrong. Angular, predatory, as if designed by an apex predator with no need for elegance. Thousands of shimmering emitter arrays lined its flanks like bioluminescent scales. Its bow bristled with prongs of exotic metal spires that curled in fractal patterns, each one humming with contained singularity energy. It was as if humanity had looked at every galactic treaty limiting weapons development, smiled politely, and ignored all of them. Officers on the bridge gasped as the Leviathan turned, its rotation causing gravitational lensing to warp the stars behind it. A ship that massive should not have been able to move like that. But it moved. Effortlessly. Kryth Vorgan felt his heart stutter. He quelled the sensation with years of discipline. "Sensorian," he said. "Provide a tactical analysis. Now." The Sensorian's voice cracked. "Overlord, range resolution is compromised. It is distorting long-range telemetry. We cannot get clean readings." "You suggest," Vorgan hissed, "that the Terrans have developed a stealth field of this magnitude?" The Sensorian bowed deeply, forehead touching the obsidian floor. "Not stealth, Overlord. Something else. Our instruments report light-time inconsistency." Vorgan stared. "You are babbling." "No, Overlord." The Sensorian trembled. "The ship is interfering with causality." Silence fell again, deeper this time, as if the universe itself held its breath. Aboard the TSV Leviathan, Commander Lyrachern stood at the forward observation balcony, hands clasped behind her back, as she watched the ocean of stars flex around the ship's gravitic shields. "Contact with the Zervan fleet confirmed," her tactical officer reported. "How many ships?" Chen asked. "Approximately 700, Captain. Multiple carrier groups, dreadnoughts, siege platforms." A pause. "They deployed for a full system extermination campaign." Chen nodded once. As expected. The Leviathan had been designed for only 2 missions: deterrence and Eschaton-class retaliation. It was not a ship meant to fight fleets. It was a ship meant to make fleets irrelevant. "Bring primary projectors online," Chen said calmly. The deck vibrated as the containment fields in the bow hummed, pulling unimaginable forces into alignment. A soft glow washed over the forward decks, like dawn spreading across metal. Projector 1 at 40%, the operator reported. Projector 2 initialized. Gravitic anchor points stable. Chen exhaled. The Zervan Dominion had insisted on war. Today they would witness what war with humans truly meant. Back aboard the Vorthal, Overlord Vorgan forced his breathing to steady as he watched the Leviathan's hull brighten. Not with weapons fire. Not with reactor venting. With ambience. What is it doing? Vorgan demanded. His weapons officer shook violently. Overlord, it isn't charging a weapon. Explain. It is stabilizing itself. The officer swallowed. The Terran ship is preparing the spacetime around its hull. Preparing for what? To demonstrate, the officer whispered, that we do not understand what we are looking at. The Leviathan shifted. The stars behind it stretched and curled as the ship's gravimetric lattice expanded, blooming like a metallic flower. Light bent, refracted, and folded around it. On the Zervan flagship, alarms screamed as their navigation systems panicked. Every ship in the fleet drifted by kilometers, their gravitational anchors overridden by the Leviathan's presence alone. No weapons fired. No shields engaged. The Leviathan simply existed, and the fleet suffered. Vorgan clenched his fists. Notify the fleet. Prepare for engagement. We will test this Terran monstrosity. But even as he said it, his stomach turned. This was wrong. This was unnatural. This was not a warship. It was a verdict. Aboard the Leviathan, Chen watched as the Dominion fleet scrambled to realign formations. Tactical, she said. Mark all siege platforms. Marked. Disable them. The officer hesitated. Captain, from this range? Those platforms are 60 million kilometers away. Chen didn't blink. I said disable. Yes, ma'am. The ship's bow thrummed. The fractal emitters pulsed once. No flare, no beam, no visible discharge. 60 million kilometers away, 3 Dominion siege platforms shuddered and went dark, their cores simultaneously collapsing into inert metal. Bridge crew stared. Chen did not. Send the Dominion a message. Yes, Captain. Contents. Chen looked at the Leviathan's reflection on the glass, a serene expression amid apocalyptic capability. Message, leave. Now. Aboard the Vorthal. The message arrived. 2 words. The shortest ultimatum in Dominion history. Across the bridge, a chill spread. Officers whispered ancient prayers. The Leviathan bristled on the screen, a silent titan watching their every move. For the first time in his rule, Overlord Kryth Vorgan felt fear. Because in the beating heart of the void, he understood. Their destruction was not coming. It was already assured. Even empires have moments when they realize the cosmos is larger than their arrogance. For the Zervan Dominion, that moment came in the form of a 2-word human transmission echoing across the pale verge. Leave. Now. Overlord Kryth Vorgan felt the words burn into him like a brand. Not because of what they said, but because the Terrans clearly didn't need to say anything at all. His officers waited, trembling. Some stared at the Leviathan's distorted silhouette across the void. Others refused to look at the screen altogether, as if the thing displayed there might somehow notice them. Overlord, the comms officer finally whispered, the foreign vessel has powered no visible weapons systems. Vorgan turned slowly. Do you believe that comforts me? And no, Overlord. It does not fire because it does not need to fire, Vorgan said softly. It disables from across a star system. It warps the very frameworks of our fleet. His claws tapped on the armrest, each strike a slow, methodical beat. We must not retreat. The Dominion does not bend. But even as he said it, the bridge crew heard the weakness in his voice. Aboard the TSV Leviathan, Commander Lyra Chen watched as her bridge crew processed the readings. Captain, Tactical whispered. The Dominion fleet is hesitating. Of course they are, Chen said. This is the part where fear meets pride. The Leviathan glided forward without thrust, its gravitic sails pulling it through spacetime like a celestial predator slicing through dark water. The ship created its own current, its own tides, its own rules. The Zervan fleet scattered slightly, pushed by the ship's presence. Chen clasped her hands behind her back. Open a channel to Fleet Command. Send a preliminary assessment. Dominion forces unwilling to withdraw. Preparing for enforcement action. Acknowledged, her officer said. Terran Fleet Command confirms escalation authorization. Chen nodded once. They had hoped the ultimatum would be enough. Humanity did not seek wars, it ended them. The Dominion's mistake. Overlord, cried Weapons Officer Thyrak. One of our forward cruisers has fired. Vorgan's eyes widened. On whose command? None. They panicked, Overlord. They believed the Terran ship was initiating an attack. On the holoscreen, a single Dominion plasma lance streaked through space toward the Leviathan. A weapon designed to punch through armor, collapse shields, and vaporize outposts. It was the kind of shot that had ended a dozen civilizations. It never reached the Leviathan. The plasma bolt elongated, stretched, twisted, then simply vanished, ripped apart by gravitational harmonics before it closed half the distance. The Leviathan did not shudder. It did not flare shields. It did not even acknowledge the attack. Chern stared at the fading particle residue. Tactical. Confirm what we observed. The tactical officer blinked repeatedly. Captain, the enemy plasma was annihilated by our ship's passive gravitic shear. The Leviathan simply existed too hard for it. Chen nodded. That's what I thought. But for the first time that day, even she felt a subtle chill. The Leviathan was powerful, yes, but its full behavior was not entirely predictable, even to her. After all, it was built from technologies that had only recently become comprehensible to human science. Prepare to disable the nearest attack group, Chen ordered. Yes, Captain. Aboard the Vorthal. The bridge was in chaos as Dominion ships scattered. Overlord, cried the navigation chief. 2 of our cruisers have lost structural integrity. Vorgan slammed his fist against the throne. How? They attempted to adjust trajectory while within the Terran vessel's distortion field. Their inertial dampeners, inverted. Inverted, Vorgan snarled. They were crushed from within, Overlord. A silence of horror fell. Vorgan could feel his empire cracking. Send a message to all fleet units, he said slowly, each word heavy with dread. Maintain distance. Do not fire. Do not maneuver without clearance. He looked back at the Leviathan, its hull shimmering with shifting geometries. What are you, Terran? He whispered. The Leviathan speaks. A single, soft pulse emitted from the Leviathan's bow. It was not a laser. Not a missile. Not an EMP. It was a signal. A gravitational oscillation that rippled out across the fleet like a heartbeat. And every Dominion ship felt it. Alarms shrieked. Hulls groaned. Shields flickered. Dozens of smaller ships went dark as their power systems collapsed, flicked off by the oscillation as casually as brushing dust from a table. A deep, terrible realization spread through the Dominion fleet. This was not a weapon. This was a warning tap. If the Leviathan had wanted, that pulse could have split their ships apart. Where terror meets truth. Chen watched the Dominion ships drift helplessly. They still numbered in the hundreds, but formation was collapsing. Status of enemy weapon platforms? She asked. Remaining platforms online. 4, her officer reported. All others disabled. And their carriers? Offloading fighters, but the fighters are unable to stabilize within our distortion envelope. Good. On Chen's command screen, a cluster of red icons flickered. The Dominion was terrified, but not retreating. Cowards would have fled. Fanatics would have charged. Prideful conquerors? They froze. Captain, said the comms officer. Dominion flagship requesting direct communication. Chen raised an eyebrow. Put them on. The hollow space shimmered. Overlord Kryth Vorgan appeared, or rather, a distorted version of him, struggling against the Leviathan's gravitational bleed. His image warped slightly, as if even photons struggled to obey his presence here. His voice was strained. Forced. Terran, he hissed. You violate natural law. Chen tilted her head slightly. We rewrote some of it. You cannot threaten the Dominion. We are. You are in violation of Terran's sovereign borders, Chen interrupted calmly. You arrived with genocide fleet. You disabled outposts. You fired first. Vorgan bared his teeth. We will not kneel. You don't need to kneel, Chen said. You simply need to leave. The Leviathan drifted closer, not to fire, not to ram, but to show scale. The Dominion flagship, once a symbol of terror across the verge, looked like a drifting toy beside it. Chen's voice remained level. This is your final warning. What the Zervan truly feared. The transmission ended abruptly. Vorgan sat frozen. We cannot fight that, whispered the Censorian. Even our dreadnoughts cannot. We are the Dominion. Vorgan shouted, desperation cracking his voice. We do not yield. He turned to the bridge crew, who stared back in hollow terror. He saw it clearly now. They weren't afraid of death. They weren't afraid of losing. They were afraid because the Terrans were not fighting them. The Terrans were judging them. And the Leviathan was the judge. Chen gives the order. Tactical, Chen said softly. Mark the enemy flagship. The officer hesitated. Captain, are we firing? Chen's eyes hardened. No. We disable it. Gentle precision. Let them understand mercy before they understand annihilation. Yes, Captain. The Leviathan's bow glowed, fractal spires bending inward like petals closing. A single harmonic pulse. A hum. A flicker. And aboard the Vorthul, every weapon, every shield, every engine went silent. The Dominion flagship drifted, powerless, naked before the Terran dreadnought. And every living being aboard understood. Judgment had begun. For the first time in its long, brutal history, the Zervan Dominion's command flagship drifted powerless through space. No engines. No shields. No weapons. Just silence. The Overlord's throne room felt colder than vacuum itself. Kryth Vorgan stared at his frozen displays, sharp teeth grinding. The Dominion's entire battle doctrine, intimidation, saturation fire, shock assaults, had inverted on him. They were the ones frozen in terror now. A vessel too large to comprehend loomed in the distance. The Leviathan did not advance. It simply remained, waiting. A predator content to let its prey stew in the knowledge of its inferiority. Aboard the TSV Leviathan, Commander Lyra Chen stood at the center of the observation deck. The quiet hum of the Leviathan's internal reactors was the sound of inevitability. Status on the Dominion flagship? She asked. Completely disabled, Captain, the systems officer confirmed. All power systems offline. We didn't even overload anything, we just suspended their matter reactor harmonics. Chen allowed herself a small exhale. Good. Minimal collateral. Maximum message. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Rao, stepped closer. Their fleet is in disarray. Half of them are drifting. Some are powering down in surrender patterns. And the other half? Chen asked. Too proud to admit defeat. Too scared to attack. They're waiting to see what we do. Chen nodded. Fear was a language. Precision was the dialect humans excelled at. Open a channel, she said. Fleet-wide broadcast. Yes, Captain. Chen's voice carried across the void, calm but heavy with warning. Dominion forces. You violated Terran borders and fired first. Your flagship is now disabled. Your weapons are suspended. You cannot win. Withdraw, or your entire fleet will be neutralized. She paused. Choose survival. The message echoed across every Dominion hull. On the Vorthul, the Leviathan's voice was a death sentence wrapped in diplomacy. Vorgan clenched his fists so tightly his claws bled. Survival, he spat. They dare lecture the Dominion? His generals avoided his gaze. The fear in the room was so thick it felt suffocating. Overlord, whispered the Censorian, we cannot even reinitialize basic power. Our reactors refuse to start. They're locked. Locked? Vorgan snarled. Yes. As if, the Censorian swallowed hard. As if the Terrans are holding them in place. The dread within the chamber deepened. Then a quiet alarm chimed. The comms officer shook violently. Overlord, the Terran ship is emitting a new field. New field? Vorgan demanded. Yes. But it is not a weapon. The officer stared at his display, confused. It is scanning. But not our ships. A pause. It's scanning us. Individually. Silence crushed the room. Vorgan's heart stuttered. What are they scanning for? The officer looked up, pale. Intent, Overlord. They are scanning for intent. Impossible. Unacceptable. Terrifying. The Dominion's greatest fear was not power. It was understanding. If the Terrans could read emotion across species lines, if they could detect aggression or deceit, then all the Dominion's bluffs, rituals, and psychological warfare were meaningless. The Leviathan was not just a warship. It was a truth machine. The heart of the Leviathan. Inside the Leviathan's core, the ship's conscience lattice hummed. Hundreds of thousands of qubit threads braided into a single functional mind, not an AI, but an instrument of moral calculus. Scan results incoming, Rao reported. Chen nodded. Display. Green, yellow, and red silhouettes appeared on a wide holopane, one for every Dominion officer aboard the fleet. Most of the crew aboard the Vorthal are registering in the yellow band. Fear, confusion, defensive intent, Rao noted. Some registering green, officers with no desire for conflict. Chen looked at the few red silhouette. Leaders. Rao swallowed. Yes, Captain. High command ranks, including the Overlord. Chen stepped forward. Bring up his profile. A single red silhouette expanded. Beneath it, a cascade of emotional vectors and neurological patterns registered. Aggression, malice, strategic deceit, genocidal intent. Chen frowned. He's not afraid of us, she said softly. He's afraid of losing his empire. Rao nodded. He'll choose destruction over retreat. Chen's voice hardened. Then we'll remove the option of destruction. The Dominion breaks. Alarms wailed across the Vorthal. Overlord, cried the tactical chief. Our ships are sending distress signals. Distress. Vorgan barked. They are surrendering, Overlord. They're broadcasting retreat coordinates. Entire battle groups. Vorgan's claws scraped the throne. Traitors, he whispered. But he understood. They weren't betraying him. They were refusing to die for him. The final crack in the Dominion's psyche shattered. Open channel. Vorgan screamed. I will speak to the Terran captain. A conversation between pride and power. The holospace shimmered as Vorgan's snarling face appeared. Terran, you insult my fleet. You shame me before my empire. Chen's expression remained still. You invaded first. You disabled us. You attacked first. You threaten us with extinction. You brought weapons built for extinction. Vorgan trembled, torn between rage and dread. You claim mercy, he spat, yet you humiliate a sovereign empire. Chen tilted her head. No. You humiliated yourself when you came to slaughter civilians in our frontier sectors. You dare. Chen cut him off. I dare prevent genocide. Vorgan froze. The Leviathan loomed behind her like a mountain forged from starlight and nightmares. Chen's voice softened, but the softness terrified him more than any roar. You have one final chance, Overlord. Order your fleet to retreat. Now. And if I don't, he whispered. Chen looked at him with an expression devoid of hate, the expression of someone who had already calculated the outcome. Then I will remove you from command. The blood drained from Vorgan's face. Why you wouldn't dare? That is an act of war. You declared war the moment you crossed our borders with extermination fleets, Chen said. The only reason you're still breathing is because humans prefer peace over dominance. Her eyes sharpened. But make no mistake. If you continue to threaten us, you will not command another day. The channel cut. The Leviathan prepares its final step. Tactical, Chen said softly. Begin Phase 3 targeting. The officer hesitated. Captain, you're sure? Yes, Chen said. Precision extraction. No casualties. One target. Rao nodded, steadying himself. Activating gravitational pin array. Deep within the Leviathan's bow, unseen systems awakened, spires rotating softly, forming a lattice of geometric perfection. A weapon not of destruction, but of removal. A system designed for one purpose: capture the instigator without harming a single member of their fleet. Humanity did not need to kill. It only needed to end the threat. Array charged, Rao confirmed. Chen exhaled. Acquire Overlord Kryth Vorgan. On the Vorthal. A tremor rippled through the flagship. What is that? An officer cried. The deck plates vibrated. Lights dimmed. Something invisible wrapped around Vorgan, an unseen force tightening like a hand around the fabric of his existence. Overlord, the crew shouted. You're phasing. Vorgan reached out, clawed fingers swiping the air. No. Dominion. Save me. His body flickered. Then, in a flash of spiraling light, he vanished from the throne. The bridge fell silent. Panic rippled through the Dominion flagship as the Overlord vanished. One moment he sat on his throne, bellowing in defiance. The next, he flickered like a glitch in reality, and disappeared. The bridge crew stared at the empty throne in silence so absolute it rang in their ears. Sensor alarms screamed. Power readings fluctuated. Comms officers whispered the only word their pride would allow. Captured. It was impossible. No ship in the known galaxy possessed extraction technology capable of removing a living being from a sealed flagship, not without tearing the ship apart. And yet the Leviathan had done it without scratching a panel. Fear gave way to something worse. Recognition. Humanity had reached a level of war the Dominion had never imagined. Aboard the TSV Leviathan, the interrogation vault, Overlord Vorgan slammed his fists against the transparent barrier. It did not budge. Terran, he roared. Let me out. The Dominion will burn your worlds for this. Commander Lyra Chen stepped into view, hands calmly clasped behind her back. You are in no position, she said, to threaten anyone. Vorgan hissed. You dare abduct a sovereign leader? I removed the instigator of an unprovoked genocide attempt. Chen's voice remained perfectly level. That's what we call de-escalation. Vorgan snarled, but the thin tremor in his voice betrayed him. What are you going to do to me, Terran? That, Chen said, depends on your fleet. Dominion fleet, the breaking point. Aboard dozens of Zervan warships, panic turned to mutiny. He's gone, a cruiser captain shouted. Our Overlord is gone. No Terran weapon hits with that precision. This is sorcery. It's not sorcery, the science officer whispered. It's physics beyond our understanding. We have no leader, another voice said. No orders. A harsh alarm cut through every Dominion vessel. Priority broadcast from Terran flagship. Thousands of Zervan officers stiffened as Chen's holographic projection filled their bridges. Her expression was serene. Her presence was terrifying. Zervan fleet, she said. Your Overlord has been removed from the field. He is unharmed. He is contained. He is no longer in command. Officers looked at one another, stunned. Chen continued. You invaded our sovereign territory with extermination fleets. You targeted civilian outposts. You fired first. She paused. We have responded with restraint. Restraint. That word cut deeper than any weapon. Dominion fleets had been crushed, disabled, neutralized, and humanity claimed it was restraint. Chen's eyes hardened. You may withdraw now with honor. If you stay, you will be disarmed without casualties. For the first time in Dominion history, commanders began broadcasting surrender protocols. In the Leviathan's core, the calculus of mercy. Rao approached Chen. Captain, you've inspired mass retreat. Entire battle groups are powering down. Chen nodded. Good. Record all ship signatures. If they recross the border, we disable them permanently. Yes, Captain. He hesitated. Permission to speak freely? Go ahead. Rao looked at the Leviathan's glowing hull outside the command balcony. Sometimes, he said, I wonder if the Dominion fears our technology or the way we use it. Chen considered this. We didn't build the Leviathan to conquer, she said. We built it so we wouldn't have to. Rao nodded, understanding. Power was terrifying. Measured power was worse. It meant humans could destroy and chose not to. The Dominion had no equivalent concept. Aboard the Dominion flagship, Collapse. Without the Overlord's presence, the Vorthul was a drifting monolith of panic. Officers barked incompatible commands. Power techs failed to reboot consoles. Fear, once suppressed by military discipline, now spread like fire in oxygen. Captain Ryzek, the highest-ranking officer remaining, stood before the throne. The Overlord is gone, he said quietly. We must preserve the Dominion. A younger officer spat. Preserve? By surrendering? Ryzek's crest lowered. A dead fleet preserves no empire. He opened a broadcast to the Leviathan. This is Acting Commander Ryzek of the Vorthul. He swallowed. We request terms. The bridge fell silent. Terran mercy was terrifying. Dominion negotiation was unfamiliar. But survival was survival. Aboard the Leviathan, negotiation of a different kind. Chen accepted the incoming transmission. Ryzek stood rigid, trying to appear dignified despite the tremor in his voice. Terran Commander, he said, we acknowledge that we cannot match your vessel. We request terms for safe withdrawal. Chen's expression did not soften. There is only one term. Ryzek braced himself. State it. Chen spoke clearly. The Dominion will never again cross Terran borders with hostile intent. Ryzek blinked. You will trust our word? Chen glanced down at a small holopad, displaying hundreds of emotional and neurological intent signatures across the Dominion fleet. No, she said. We will trust your fear. Ryzek swallowed. What of the Overlord? He will face trial, Chen said. A fair one. And his life. Chen held his gaze. That depends on how many more lives he tried to sacrifice today. Ryzek closed his eyes. So be it. The moment the Dominion kneels. Across the pale verge, hundreds of Dominion ships powered down their weapons, reoriented engines, and plotted retreat vectors. Not a single Terran missile had been fired. Not a single hull had been breached. And yet, the Dominion had suffered the most absolute military defeat in its history. Not through annihilation. Through irrelevance. Humanity had rendered their war doctrine meaningless, and that was worse than death. Back in the interrogation vault, Vorgan paced like a caged animal. What have you done? He snarled. The Dominion does not retreat. Chen's reflection appeared in the transparent barrier. It does now, she said. You've humiliated me. I've stopped you. You dare take my empire? Chen stepped closer. I don't want your empire, she said. I want my people safe. Vorgan stared, breath trembling. Chen continued softly. You came to kill us. You failed. Now you get to watch your soldiers choose survival over obedience. That choice, Vorgan hissed, is treason. No, Chen met his gaze. It's clarity. The fleet departs. One by one, Dominion ships slipped into warp, limping, damaged, disarmed, but alive. They would go home shaken, fearful, and changed. They would tell their worlds that humanity was not prey. Humanity was not prey pretending to be predators. Humanity was the apex of restraint. And the Leviathan was proof. By the time the last Dominion ship vanished from sensors, Rao approached Chen again. "All hostile signatures clear," he said. "The Verge is ours again." Chen nodded. "Prepare containment transport," she said. "We're taking the Overlord back to Terran High Court." Rao hesitated. "Captain, what if the Dominion retaliates?" Chen looked at the Leviathan's reflection. "If they return," she said, "we will not need to fire a second warning." In the vault, a final realization. Vorgan watched as the last Dominion ship fled. Tears of rage and humiliation burned down his cheeks. "You have broken us," he whispered. Chen shook her head. "No," she said. "I've shown you the edge of the cliff you were already marching toward." "And what happens now?" Vorgan asked. Chen answered without ceremony. "Now," she said softly, "you face judgment." Silence. Real, absolute silence, so vast and heavy that even the void itself seemed to hesitate. The Zervan Dominion's armada no longer formed ranks. Its speartip formations were gone, its proud kill lines scattered like insects before a firestorm. Fragments of once legendary warships drifted through pale starlight, their molten edges cooling slowly as they tumbled. The proud Dominion, over 10,000 cycles of imperial dominance, now floated as wreckage around a single human warship. The TSV Leviathan held position at the epicenter of the devastation, its hull unmarred, its lights cold, its weapons quiet but not powered down. The ship watched the ruins like a predator, making sure nothing else dared move. On the bridge, Commander Lyra Chen stood straight, her hands behind her back as the tactical holosphere rotated slowly before her. Blue human icons. Diminished red Zervan signatures. A few pockets of escape pods drifting helplessly through the aftermath. "Status," she said. Her XO, Lieutenant Cale Thorne, scanned the reports. "Enemy flagship crippled. Their auxiliary fleets have broken alignment. All remaining Zervan vessels are either dead in the water or fleeing at full burn. Our casualties, 0. The bridge did not cheer. No one on Leviathan celebrated victory. Because victory had never been the objective. The holosphere pulsed. A faint red signature flickered in the debris field. "Overlord Kryth Vorgan's life capsule," Thorne said. "Recovered by one of his escort pods. He's alive." Chen exhaled slowly. "Open a channel." The broken strategist. Overlord Kryth Vorgan had been feared across 5 sectors. His face, angular and serrated with bone plate ridges, once carried the smug assurance of a creature convinced of his own supremacy. Now, displayed in the holographic projection, he looked small. Smoke stains covered his once golden armor. One of his ocular ridges drooped. His breathing rasped through damaged gills. "You," Kryth hissed, voice trembling. "Human. Commander. What have you done?" Chen's voice remained composed, almost soft, the tone of someone explaining inevitability. "You attacked a frontier colony. You attempted to eliminate a species you didn't understand." She clasped her hands behind her back. "We responded with clarity." "Clarity?" the Overlord spat. This devastation, this is annihilation." Chen's gaze didn't waver. "No. If we intended annihilation, your star system would no longer exist." The Overlord froze. Every officer on his bridge pod froze. Chen continued, her voice level. "Leviathan carries weapons you never observed today. What you've witnessed is the lowest rung on the ladder. A warning, not a sentence." Silence. Then a trembling whisper from the alien warlord. "You mean to break us? To humiliate the Dominion?" Chen shook her head. "No. Your arrogance broke you. We simply allowed you to see how." She leaned forward slightly. "Your empire still exists. Your people still breathe. This is the part where you decide what happens next." Kryth looked around his ruined bridge pod, panic beginning to replace pride. What do humans want?" Chen answered without hesitation. "A future where you don't make us do this again. The Sovereign Declaration. Admiral Saren, one of KRYTH's surviving subcommanders, appeared beside him in the projection, his eyes wide with terror as he stared at the Leviathan. "We cannot fight this," Saren whispered. "Overlord, we must accept. The Dominion cannot survive a second encounter." KRYTH's jaw clenched. His mandibles quivered. His species had lived by conquest. To surrender, even in spirit, was unthinkable. Chen sensed his hesitation. "Dominion Overlord," she said, tone turning iron-sharp. "Before you speak your next words, understand, Leviathan is not alone. Humanity has 6 others of her class nearing completion. A fleet, not a fluke." The Overlord made a strangled sound. Thorn stepped forward, adding, "And you encountered this ship while she was operating at only 42% of combat capacity." KRYTH stared into the hollow feed as if staring into the jaws of extinction. "For thousands of cycles," he said slowly, voice unsteady, "we believed humans were fragile, disorganized, a primitive species hiding behind borrowed technology." Chen nodded. "We encouraged that belief." "Why?" "Because predators underestimate prey," Chen said. "And prey that evolves into a predator is something the galaxy never forgets." The Overlord bowed his head. "I understand." The oath he spoke next had not been recited in over 4,000 cycles, reserved only for moments when an empire accepted the presence of a superior power. Dominion stands down. Aftermath. Leviathan's bridge remained silent long after the transmission ended. Thorn exhaled. "It's done." "No," Chen said, eyes fixed on the stars. "This is only the first message." "First?" Thorn frowned. Chen's expression remained unreadable. "Word of today will reach every power in the galaxy. They will misunderstand it. Some will seek alliances. Some will flee us. Some will plot." "And our response?" Chen turned to face him, her gaze cold and steady. "We show them the same clarity we showed the Dominion. The quiet hum of power." Hours later, Chen walked the outer observation ring, the only part of Leviathan where armored transparasteel allowed a direct view of the void. The ship glided through the battlefield's remnants, its gravity drive silent, its hull lit by soft blue plasma veins. Beneath her feet, 1,000,000 tons of human engineering responded to her every command with flawless precision. A single ship had ended an empire's war. Not through extermination. Not through genocide. Through revelation. She remembered the Dominion's first words upon seeing Leviathan. "Impossible." That would now be the galaxy's most repeated word. Cale Thorn joined her at the viewport. "Commander, what happens now?" Chen watched a shattered Zervan cruiser drift past, its hull glowing like a dying ember. "Now." She rested a hand on the cold glass. "Now the galaxy learns a truth it has avoided." Thorn waited. Chen's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Humanity didn't seek power." She turned, eyes reflecting the Leviathan's blue glow. "But power found us." She faced the stars again. "And now we bear the responsibility of what that means." The Leviathan rotated slowly in the starlight, an artificial eclipse. The galaxy, once so loud with its threats and boasts, now seemed to hold its breath. Because a new rule had entered the void. Do not provoke the species that builds ships like this. And across the fractured remains of the Dominion Armada, in every drifting escape pod, in every trembling survivor's mind, one truth carved itself into memory. The moment they first saw a human battleship, their destruction became clear.